This summer has been so beautiful. Living in Denmark isn't always easy for me for many reasons, and though I try to make peace with the lack of wilderness and the flat landscape here, sometimes I really struggle. But summer is my favorite time of the year here, and this year I've really been able to make the most out of it. Every day I've made an effort to go out into nature for at least an hour, and even though it's not the wilderness I crave, being amongst the trees, flowers, and small patches of nature that Denmark does have to offer, it helps me feel at peace while I work towards traveling to the mountains and the wilderness that I really love. Getting out of my head and immersing myself in the nature that I do have access to here puts me in a way better headspace and forces me to focus on this moment. It allows me to put my frustrations aside and feel grateful for what I have here and now instead of wishing for something more. This summer was the first time in years that I've put the time and effort into painting and sharing my art with the world. And it has been such an incredible experience to create new paintings, wash and seal them, and send them off to new homes around the world. Just knowing that my art is bringing happiness to others is all I can really ask for. I experimented this summer and created a series of brighter, more colorful paintings that I put on my Etsy shop. They're inspired by the beaches and wildflowers close to our cottage, and also by my longings for a more mountainous landscape. I'm really happy with how they turned out, and the brighter colors definitely reflected how happy I feel when the warmth finally arrives in Scandinavia. And once the warmer weather arrived, we started working on converting a little dilapidated shack on our property into an art studio. The building is small, but it's also really cozy and charming. It just needed a facelift. I have a vision of turning it into a little rustic nook with lots of thrifted decor like candles, baskets, a couch made out of pallets, and wall lanterns, but before I can decorate inside, we had to start renovating the outside of the shack. We replaced the old windows and took off the old railing and aged doors. And luckily, we were able to find really high quality doors secondhand with big windows that allow a lot of light into the space. The doors were tricky to install. I'm learning that doors usually are, but Lucas and his dad are amazing with reno projects, and I would not have been able to do this without them. Then we cut up the insulation, fit it into the wall frame, and reinforced the whole building with steel cables. It's been a lot of work to turn the shack into a livable space, and there's still a lot to do, but it's been so worth it. Our next step is to build the floor and the walls, and then comes the part I'm so excited for, which is decorating and really making the studio mine. We always spend a lot of our time outdoors in the summer, and one day when I was out walking with Pepsi, I found a little hedgehog that was really disoriented. How are his eyes?
It's really hard to judge.
Hold on.
So,
Is he okay? Is he bloody?
he seems to be really fine.
We brought him to a local hedgehog rescue that we have here, and that eventually led to us volunteering to release rehabilitated hedgehogs into our garden.
Just a little cutie pie, aren't you?
He's more curious about his surroundings than anything.
We've been intentionally letting our garden grow wild so that the wildlife feels safe here, and getting the chance to release little hedgehogs into our yard was so heartwarming. Unfortunately, the first little guy that we rescued was too sick to save, but he passed away surrounded by people who cared for him, and that wouldn't have been the case if we hadn't found him wandering around on the road. I'd never interacted with hedgehogs before, but the whole experience of rescuing and releasing them made me fall in love with the spiky little guys. And when I wasn't renovating, painting, or hanging out with the hedgehogs, this year was the first year that we really put a focus on growing our own food. We have a long way to go to being self-sustainable, but even still, we have many fruit trees that kept producing fruit all summer long. Our Victoria plums seemed to take the longest to ripen, and we had to wait patiently as our tree produced more and more green plums. But the first trees that started fruiting were our cherry trees. We have several on our property, and the birds didn't really seem to want them, so we were able to pick around 20 pounds of cherries. Every night at dusk, we went outside to pick more as they ripened. They're my absolute favorite fruit in this climate, and even though they're a little on the sour side, a little too sour to eat on their own, there are so many recipes that I can't wait to make with them. And as soon as we picked our cherries, I started making a raw vegan cherry cheesecake. I improvised and created my own recipe, starting with a crust made of homemade oat flour, just oats blended, and then I added in almonds and coconut sugar. I blended it together, baked it, and then began making the cheesecake filling. Blending cashews, lime juice, maple syrup, cherries, and cacao powder into the most delicious mixture that I could just eat with a spoon. I poured the cheesecake mixture on top of the crust, and then it was ready to go into the fridge to set. It was so creamy, flavorful, and delicious, and such a cool feeling to have a recipe made with food that we grew on our land. It was very rich, and I didn't need much to feel satisfied, so my little slices of cherry cheesecake lasted a long time. And cherries weren't the only fruit that we harvested. We also picked a ton of wild plums to freeze for recipes in the winter, and also some rhubarb that grows under our pear tree. I had never made anything with rhubarb before, so I chose the easiest option and made a rhubarb jam. I cooked the rhubarb down with coconut sugar and lime juice and put the jam in the freezer until the fall, where I'm planning on making rhubarb crumble bars with it. But all in all, it is really nice to have all of this fresh food prepared for when the weather gets colder. The rest of our time at our cozy cottage was spent installing new windows and preparing for an adventure that we've been planning for the past year. We have a kind of secret project that we've been working on so that we can be out on the road, exploring, and bring our pup Pepsi along. It's a project that we started last October, and it is finally coming to fruition this year. We're leaving soon, and we'll be filming the whole journey. It's been a dream that Lucas and I both had separately for a long time, and now it's come together, and I can't wait to share it with you. Thank you so much for watching and supporting our journey, living a simple life at our cozy cottage in the Danish countryside.